Welcome to the Frauenfilmfest Dortmund+Köln, and welcome very much Annie Sprinkle and Beth Stevens. I'm so happy that you're here with us, at least online. Okay, so you made the film Water Makes Us Wet, an ecosexual adventure, and I love it. I thank you very much for this really good spirit that your film brings across. And we're going to screen it in a program, in a focus program, which is called The Connections, Films That Heal. And I think we can speak about healing. I mean, a lot. I would like to start with one of your main protagonists, Mother Earth. Like, you imagine Mother Earth like a queer and more than human lover. And I wanted to hear something about your choice to cast Sandy Stone as Earth. I find that very interesting because the narrator has such a powerful position in a film.
Firstly, we don't say Mother Earth, we say lover or lover the earth.
Yes.
Although we do imagine the earth as a mother sometimes, and certainly the earth can morph in archetypes or personalities, but we imagine the earth is trans, and Sandy Stone is trans.
And Sandy has a beautiful voice and also a really great sense of humor. So while we're dealing with very serious situations, we thought, we have to bring some humor to the table too. So Sandy was a perfect narrator.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, this is like the main issue, that you have this really heavy theme, but with this, I would call it like ecosexuality. It's also like a strategy in a sense, isn't it? To open up people probably.
It's absolutely a strategy. Yeah, and it does all kinds of work.
Yes, it does. When this one activist says, and I can really relate to this, that it keeps her going, that she says it brings joy instead of despair. That is, yeah, it's wonderful. So I recently, there were these court cases where rivers obtained like status of legal entities. I've heard about cases from New Zealand and Colombia, and I had the feeling that you were quite doing the same in your film with your protagonists. There are many of them are more than human. It starts with the landscape of obviously water. Your dog is in it. You make an interview with these elephant seals. So can you speak about that? About this approach?
Well, one of the things that we're trying to do is break down certain kinds of binaries, or hierarchical structures between humans and non-humans, because we feel that human beings are also animals, and we're also made of all of the elements that everything else in the earth is made of, and particularly water. I mean, our bodies are made of water. And so we have a huge connection to water because we are water, So I think that starting to think about this rather than human beings being separate and therefore being better than so-called nature or non-humans is part of the reason that we so easily can destroy the earth. And we're seeing that in the war in the Ukraine now. I mean, it's not just humans who are being destroyed, but of course, I mean, that's tragic, but it's also, the architecture and the landscape and the kinds of pollutions that are being unleashed right now in the land, in the rivers. I mean, and finally, at least because Ukraine supplies so much wheat to the world, that this is being talked about some too, that this is going to really affect the wheat harvest, right? So there's a connection there.
Also, all the dogs and cats, the worms, the butterflies, the fish, all the animals that are being destroyed. And we all need water. All the animals need, we're made, most of us are made of water, mostly. So, and we'll die without water. And we're seeing a horrible humanitarian crisis in terms of water alone.
But also, when we talk about ecosexuality, we're including the ecosystem. I mean, there's a huge ecosystem of sexuality. And just like an environmental ecosystem, we need every part to be working. So when Annie says the worms, I mean, worms do important work to keep human beings alive by creating soil so that we can grow things.
And they
all
make
of this,
medicine. The worms, the soil, penicillin comes from soil. And the worms help make the soil. So we all need each other. And so war is the worst polluter and destruction of the environment in so many ways. It's not just people and buildings.
So, you know, even though we seem silly and lighthearted many times, we're very serious about these issues.
Yeah, that is very clear. I mean, I'm totally with you. Actually, the program is called The Connection between plants, human and other animals. This is already in the title, you know, so I'm totally relating to what you say. Also, the fact that, I mean, like in our human body, there are so many microbes. I don't know, they argue about how many there are, with 50% or 75% of our cells, which are not even human, you know. So maybe we have to have a completely new look of what is the identity. I mean, it is definitely not ending here, you know, at my body, you know, it's going further. I touch my dog, you know, and not, you know, at all. This, so I believe that we through film can also change, you know, this attitude, you know, that if you shift, you know, the point of view, and if you shift the perspective of what you look at and how the other looks back, then we can maybe change the thoughts of people, and they relate differently to the world. And I think that's definitely what you are doing in a very, very kind and very charming and very funny and very queer and loving way. So
Thank you.
because you were saying this, we look silly and so on, you know, how do you define like your own role as a protagonist in the film? Because obviously you're wearing costumes, you know, also you perform, like, and you leave it in the film. I love that scene when you visit your mother, and your mother is so professional when she asks, you know, was that a real goodbye or film goodbye? And off you come back in, and she's so professional. Hello, you know. So how do you see your own role as a protagonist? Do you talk about it, or does it come naturally because you're like a performer all your life?
What, honey?
We're just being ourselves, and the personal is political. I learned that at a very early age, 18, when I was a witness at the trial of Deep Throat, which is 50 years old today, that started the modern day pornography genre, really. So yeah, films are political. We're seeing this morning a film by Arnold Schwarzenegger, appealing to the Russians. Zelensky is an actor and filmmaker. We have to win the hearts and minds of people to change the world, and film. Thank you for your film festival, and for all of you who are there supporting this film festival. I really appreciate the concepts that you're working with.
Well,
and also, this film, Water Makes Us Wet, was our second film, our
Together.
first film together, our second film together. Annie's made hundreds of films.
Mm-hmm.
But the first film was about mining in West Virginia, coal mining, a really very violent form of coal mining called mountaintop removal. And so, you know, that story was based in my childhood story, and this story was in some ways based in Annie's family and childhood stories. So, you know, we try to balance that, and we're getting ready to make a film about fire. It's going to be called Playing with Fire, and it'll be about social fires as well as physical fires, you know, metaphorical fires. We're really going to delve into, you know, what our relationship with fire is, and it's going to be pretty intense.
It's the main energies, isn't it? Like in the Chinese, like earth, like coal.
Yeah.
Then you have the water, and next one will be fire. Then you have to do one about air.
I know, that's going to be fun.
Yeah. What do you think about this title, Films That Heal? Would you consider that your film is a film that healed? Can you relate to that?
I think that all art is healing because it gives you, or it gives me a way to move beyond a current state that I might be in. And isn't that what healing is? You have a wound and you try to move beyond that state, either physically or psychologically or spiritually.
Mm.
So art's always been a way that I've been, transposed to another place. Right. And I don't know that, sort of literal healing or new age healing, those sorts of things were never quite so interesting to me as a sort of psychic, kind of psychic healing and the magic that art has the potential to make happen. And, not everyone likes the same art, not everyone likes the same film, but I've been changed by films and art that I really love. And for me, that was healing.
I actually prefer the word art, films that make change. Healing always implies something's wrong, something's broken. And I like to think that we're at the right place at the right time, considering where we come from and what we know. And we just can do better. We can do better and we can make change and change things for the better. We can have a better world. We can have peace in the world. I believe that. And
I like healing.
we're all the walking wounded in some way. And certainly there's a time and place for the word healing, but it also goes with we're in pain and we're broken.
So we are in pain and we are broken.
So there's a judgment to the word healing.
Yes, I understand that because yes, I understand that it's really a problem. I was wondering how important is for you the role of the community because like you're so very well connected, how do you see yourself in this community in your artistic and also in your activist work?
Well, our community is everything. I mean, again, it's another ecosystem. And I don't think we can exist alone. The sort of individual greatness, I think it's a myth. And I think that, we are all part of certain systems that help us go where we need to go or where we want to go, or be who we want to be. I mean, I know that I would not be sitting here if it were not for various communities and various mentors that I've had along the way and various people who have helped me in tiny ways and in huge ways. I mean, your cousin's one of those people, even though she's not a Milkovic, even though she was my student, she has been a great help for having me think about certain kinds of things in different ways. And I really appreciate that. And she was in our wedding to the earth in Croatia, in Zagreb. She was our kum, which was our godfather, and she sang a beautiful sevda, and that changed the way that I saw things. And it was really beautiful. So thank you for being cousins with Nada.
Thank you, Nada, for being.
That's one of the advantages to getting older is you've met more and more people, but also you start to see how things are interconnected. And yeah, it all is an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And without water, we'd be dead. Without the worms,
without our friends,
and
probably without our enemies, we wouldn't have gotten the attention in some ways we've gotten too.
What I also love, I mean, like art, sexuality, ritual, spirituality, performance, fun, political activism, science, you name it, you all merge it in this film, I also think of this, I mean, to also your private life, as you mentioned, it's a big, what is it? It's like threads which are woven into each other, and that is really great too. It's also a strategy, I think, to interconnect engineers with artists and queer people with whatever, spiritual people, isn't it?
Well, we are, we see their life as art. Life is art, and we're life artists, and all the world's a live sex show stage. All the world is a stage, really.
It's all art material. I mean, our lives, science, politics, you know, the environment, all of these things, love. We spent 7 years focusing on love as art. And that was intense because we had never really literally directly you know, approached love as a thing, which seemed a very soft thing, something that's been so commodified. And I think we grew a lot from that project too.
It led us to the whole idea of ecosexuality, which is when your love grows and grows, it grows to cosmic proportions, from just two of us being in love to our community, to our whole ecosystem, to the universe. And love has a way of multiplying when, and so does hate, unfortunately.
But once we married the earth, we were ecosexual. I mean, it just was like, boom.
Yes, you married the earth, that's right. I mean, that's yeah, that is also the notion of like more than human idea, you know, like what is the subject, you know, what is the legal subject that comes back to that, you know, you do it all. I mean, you've done it all. You married it, you love it.
Well, it was at a time when we were fighting for equal rights for same-sex couples. Heterosexual people had 1,200 rights in the US, and people like us had domestic partnership, which had like 400 rights. So we now have equal rights. And then we thought, the earth and the rivers, and they need love, they need care. So we did this wedding as a performance art piece, and we've done a bunch of ecosexual weddings. We married soil in Austria. Did we do one in Germany?
No,
how did we not?
haven't done one.
Somehow we didn't do one in Germany.
Please, when this pandemic thing is over, you know, come and marry. Maybe we have this horrible flood in the Ahr Valley.
Yeah.
Summer, you know, and also our festival director comes from a village originally in that area, and it's like, really, I mean, nobody's speaking about it anymore because now we have the new war and all of this, you know, but it just happened 1 year ago, not even, you know, and it was really a flood that nobody has seen ever, you know, so you should come, you know, and
yeah. Well, it's funny because we actually have been invited to Germany several times over the last 2 years, and we're invited to come again next year. Actually, we keep having to cancel it, or things get shut down because of COVID. And now, of course, the war. I mean, oh my freaking God, it's just terrifying what's happening in Europe.
But I would love to come marry the land where that flood was, because I think it's really the devastated lands that we have to love too, as well as beautiful, pristine lands. I mean, I think it would be very, very interesting to do work in a site like that.
yeah. Really. I mean, I'm really thinking about it now because you mentioned the war in Ukraine, you know, to marry Chernobyl, you know, like it would be, because I really can relate to what Anna Tsing says, you know, that we have to also Donna Haraway, who is also obviously a friend of yours, you know, because she's really advocating a positive narrative also, no? She's not looking away from all this really miserable things and horrible stuff we are doing, but nonetheless, she's telling us that we have to tell a positive story, you know, that we have to find a new narration about how we talk about things.
Or that we stay with the trouble. That's what Donna says, is we stay with the trouble. And that, you know, that's not easy for us. I mean, something happens like these floods you're talking about, and then we look away as soon as the next thing happens. And it's
brave on a very
it lessens the importance of what has happened. But it's also hard to stay with that all the time too. So,
and we need hope. So I love that your film festival is about generating hope, because if we don't have fun and have hope, we're doomed. You know.
Yes, that's what I also believe. But I also believe that you're super brave, you know, not only on a large scale, because you're talking about this really big theme, you know, without fear and with a really positive energy, but also on a very personal level. Like, I like that how you overcome also embarrassment, you know. Like, I mean, it's funny in the scene when you're eating that burger, you know, you say it's more embarrassing than making porn, you know, to eat this burger in front of the camera and then come up with the facts, you know, it's like 2,000 gallons, you know, for this piece of beef that you're eating there. I mean,
Have you seen Monica Choi's film Generation?
I have, and Gender Notes too. Yes, we have screened them both in a double feature in the last festival, and Moni was with us, also in the jury.
Oh, great.
fabulous.
Oh, yeah. She's an old friend and a longtime friend. And I love her films. So she's been an inspiration to me.
Well, to me too. She stayed with us when she was making that film, and her crew, and it was amazing.
It's funny, but how do you come from embarrassment to Monica Toy? Does it have anything to do with it?
Yeah, well, I think her films, she really goes for honesty. And actually, she did a film about Eva Terrell, I think was Eva Norvind, pro dom, and she's eating in the film. And she was chubby and eating kind of really sloppy. And it grossed me out, but I thought it was just incredible that it was in that movie. So obviously it was in the back of my mind as I'm eating that burger. I'm like, oh my freaking God, I'm going to be eating on film.
But we're
Like,
also performance artists.
yeah.
So, you know, I mean, a lot of the performance artists that, well, I mean, of course, Annie's like the world famous performance artist, but there are people like Karen Finley who are smearing food on themselves, you know, or the Kipper Kids, or, you know, a lot of sort of visceral, Ron Athey's work is so visceral that, you know, we just sort of slowed down to think like how visceral and kind of, you know, gross eating a hamburger is. And we struggle. I mean, we're, you know, trying out alternatives to meat all the time, like Impossible Burgers or Beyond Burgers. I don't know if those have made it over to Germany, but they're sort of this high-end vegetarian, you know, bio-enhanced food.
Oh yeah, sure.
I love them, you know, and it's but I'm sure it takes a lot of water to make those too, you know. We just haven't gotten the statistics yet.
Okay, that's a burger, but then also you decide to have to show yourself in hospital after the car crash, like where you're obviously suffering. It's, I mean, that's also a decision. Is that very clear for you that needs to be in the film because it happened, or how do you? Like,
wow. Well, we like to take a so-called negative and spin it into something positive. If you can take breast cancer or lung cancer or car accident and use it in some way to share your experience and make something beautiful out of somehow, then you come out a winner.
Well, the truth is that the film was kind of boring too. And, you know, we were in that car accident because we were working on the film, but it certainly added a dramatic arc to the film because we couldn't have, you know, predicted that. And we were so lucky to find our dog Butch again. Yes. And we were so lucky that we didn't get killed because it was a very serious car accident. But, you know, a lot of good things came out of it. So, and it really reaffirmed our desire to be alive and to be doing the work that we were doing. But also it really did, you know, we're trying to make documentary films that do not follow the sort of formulaic
environmental sort of the formulaic structure of a regular documentary, which I really respect the people that are doing that work, those documentary filmmakers. But we're artists, and so we need to have something else happening. And that wreck just, you know, luckily presented itself as a great dramatic art
for the film.
Yeah, we saw on Netflix, there's a film called Seaspiracy
Yeah, we
about
hadn't seen that
the
yet.
overfishing in the ocean. And
It's
oh
just
my
like,
God, it's so heavy,
whoa.
but it had an effect. We've been eating very little fish since we've seen that film. And it really called our attention to the overfishing, things that we didn't know about. So we respect those, but I think we also need a place for queer, silly, drag, but femme. When we made Golly Mountain, no one could think of any other queer environmental activist film. Documentary, and we've asked many film curators, and nobody had seen one. Well, that's crazy, because water or clean air, that affects queer people too. So why aren't they made? Of course, they're still fighting for gay rights and freedom in many parts of the world. They're being jailed and killed. So,
but I think that is related to the killing of the earth too. Not that I think queer people are closer to nature, but I think, you know, I really believe that the way that you treat an animal is the way that you're going to treat other human beings. I think that the way someone treats their dog is a true test of their personality. And so, you know, people who are cruel to animals and people who are cruel to the earth and people who are cruel to other people, that, you know, those patterns, you can see those patterns. And so part of what that rec did in that film is it allowed, you know, it allowed that other sort of the narrator to comment about, well, we do pollute. And it allowed the, you know, the woman at the protest to have, you know, to have that flashback where she said, well, ecosexuality gives me hope, even though they're not perfect and their van pollutes, you know what I mean? It gave us this ability to put in this whole other, and it gave us, our editor, the ability to do that really fun montage, you know, of all the things that were flying by when the wreck, you know, when we didn't know if we were going to live or not, right? But it was a huge metaphor for the earth. We're in a car crash. We don't know what's going to happen, you know?
We're all eco-centers.
Yeah. But I think that honestly, it let us really kind of brainstorm about possibilities. And most documentaries, they stick with the so-called facts, you know?
Yeah,
And we don't want to really do that.
I'm totally with you, because I stopped screening those films, which are these game over narrations, you know, like exactly what you say. You watch them and then it's bloop, you know, and there are no more facts to be added. We know it all. So now we have, I mean, the facts are on the table. This is why I think that we have to do exactly what you do, you know, like to find a new way of narrating it and find another approach, you know. And I was just wondering, because you were saying about the genre, you're speaking about this kind of documentary film. I mean, it's a road movie in the end of the day. Why was that necessary? It's fun and it's great, you know, but why did you choose that genre?
Because it's so typically California. It was a California road trip. It wasn't a road trip in Nebraska, right? It was California. And California is all about the road. And that's a problem, but it's also a pleasure.
But it's a microcosm for anywhere. Every place in the world has water issues of some kind, or good water, or water that's drying up, or too much water, or the ice is melting too much, or everywhere there's issues.
But the other thing is that I work for I'm a professor at the University of California, and the University of California has different scientific nature reserves, where they're called natural reserves, where scientists go and do research. And we were able to use those reserves as film locations. And so we had these beautiful film locations where no one would, you know, we didn't have to get permits. We didn't have to do a lot of things that we couldn't afford to do. I mean, this was a really low budget film too. We're not, you know, we're not high budget filmmakers here. So, you know, there was that. And California is just so beautiful that we also wanted to show the state off. I mean, it's extraordinarily beautiful here. So that was in part why it was a road trip too. And we like road trips, right, honey? Don't we still like them? Actually, by the end of that film, we were all a little like, you know.
Come to a trip to Germany one of those days. I want to thank you so much for your time. Thank you very much.
I just want to say one thing, the film Water Makes Us Wet premiered at Documenta 14, which was the
Kassel.
honor of our
Yeah.
life to be Documenta artists in Kassel, and changed us, and it surpassed our wildest expectations. So hello, Kassel.
And yeah, we can't wait to come back to Germany
Yeah, we love Germany and
when the
hope
time's
for
right.
the best, and
Yeah.
peace, 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 peace.
Very much.
Yes, peace.